Hello everyone, it's me Carol. Glad you joined me as we continue with our series. This is part 7 of Who Do You Think You Are? Empowering Belief number 4. This is all based on Dr. Judith Orloff Guide to Intuitive Healing. There are some other books, if you've been following along, you see where I have taken information and guidance from numerous sources as I did a workshop on this material years ago. Now, part 7 is going to conclude this series. We're going to talk about Dr. Orloff's fourth and last empowering belief today. I will share additional information. This is probably going to be the longest of those videos that I did on this series. So we're going to begin, of course, with what is the fourth empowering belief. And Dr. Orloff says, go with your emotions. Surrender is not defeat. And we begin by saying, in order to surrender, we must first learn to trust in ourselves and a higher power. It's letting go of control, which stems from fear. Now, in the workshop, there was a lot of information shared back and forth with those attending and myself, because the idea of surrender can be quite fearful for a lot of people. You have to trust. And that is not always possible with one's experience, what they've been taught, what they have gone through. So we're going to discuss that today. And here are some key components. Like, we seek to control our lives not only when we do not trust, but when we do not love. They go hand in hand. And then what about the ego personality? Well, it perceives itself to be vulnerable and insecure, so it uses control in an effort to protect itself. When we understand that, hopefully we can derail the ego or understand it, so that it doesn't take over and immediately go into fear, attack, resistant mode. So in this chapter, which of course is, let me see if I can remember, part 2 of her book, and it's under emotions and relationship, where a lot of these information in this series, in the workshop, was discussed. Now, she explains that she was introduced to the virtues of surrender by an amusement park ride called the Graviton. Any of us out there been on that Graviton? I have. It's a round, rubber padded, windowless room that would spin so fast you glued to the sides by centrifugal force. And then the floor would drop out. If you didn't relax and go with it, but instead grasped and grappled about, you would slide downward in a humiliating struggle, ending up plastered against the wall in some contorted, compromising position. And as a teenager, oh my God, that was a kiss of death. You did not look cool on the bottom of that Graviton. So, in the same way, surrendering to emotion doesn't mean being defeated by it. It's the difference between riding the wave, going with it, or fighting it. So in the workshop, we immediately went on to discuss, going with your emotions. Well, there's a lot of emotions, but there are 4 basic types of emotions, and I'll be looking at that with you here today. Happiness, sadness, fear, and anger. Immediately in the workshop, I talked about a very powerful quote by Dr. Joan Borozinski. Let me read the quote, and then I will expand on this a little bit more. She says, learning to be aware of feelings, how they arise, and how to use them creatively so they guide us to happiness is an essential lifetime skill. It is a skill. We all have to learn it. We are not born understanding how to navigate these major emotions. I mean, happiness comes and goes, certainly, but sadness, fear, and anger can linger to the point of dysfunction and self-limitations. Now, I want to go back and talk about Dr. Joan Borazinsko. This book came out back in 1987. I had been a professional tarot reader since the early 1980s, and I found that I was unable to give my clients the best possible tools, counseling, information, as I realized early on that I was limited in my own experience psychologically to guide them through a lot of these emotions. When this book came out, I purchased it. I was purchasing a lot of books for self-help, understanding. Mending the Body, Mending the Mind was the one that really helped myself and my clients. I just want to share a little bit, and also to do justice, it's also written with Larry Reinstein. Okay, and like I said, at 1987. Now, this is some of the things covered in this chapter. You're going to talk about the science of healing, getting back in control, breaking the anxiety cycle. This was the most beneficial for me. A lot of people come for a reading when they're anxious, when they're worried, when they're fearful, when things are out of control. So we'll discuss that in a few minutes. Mindfulness and the discovery of the self, the mind traps and outwitting the dirty tricks. There's a department on the mind. Another great area was teaching reframing and creative imagination to my clients, healing and emotions. Okay, now going back to chapter 3, let me see what the top is, or is it right here? Must be a little farther back. Let's see. Yep. Chapter 3. I mean, I should know it by heart. Right, you would think. And it is getting back in, no, that's chapter 2, getting back in control. Here it is, we're getting there. Breaking the anxiety cycle. I found this was so helpful because she talks about the awful thoughts, the narrative that happens, and it is on a the automatic nervous system. One thought leads to another, There's tension in your face, and it is a cycle. Now, breaking that pattern, she goes into deep breathing, the importance of inhaling, exhaling, calming down. Then she goes into some exercises for the neck and the back, how important that is while you're doing your deep breathing, releasing fear, releasing anxiety, regaining control of your body, mind. Here are some more exercises, inhaling, some crunches, facial exercises. And these were almost like yoga positions that I did. But again, very important. The last part is the reframing. There's also an assessment chapter. So anyone who feels this could be helpful for anxiety, understanding how we are connecting the body-mind. This was a classic from Harvard Medical School back in 1987. It was groundbreaking. Of course, other books came out after that. So that's what I recommend. So let's continue. Let's start looking at the 4 basic types of emotions. Happiness. Well, that includes everything from feeling joyful, creative, inspired, and open to new possibilities. This is what we want to feel. The mind is content. Okay? And the feeling of joy is felt internally as well as outwardly. Now, other emotions that would fall under happiness, if you're trying to express yourself, they would include excitement. You're vibrant, you're amused, you're playful, and energetic. Sadness, on the other hand, in the workshop, we looked at two different ways of looking at it, from anxiety to depression. So depression is living in the past. Anxiety is living in the future. Now just think about that for a second. And a lot of what people attribute to sadness in their lives is more currently labeled as grief. Now there's many faces of grief. Depression tends to be grief, guilt, regret, resentment, which is all about stuff that already happened. Now we're talking about psychological depression. Sometimes this is for a couple months. We're not talking about depression, mental health depression. So please know that this is the psychological ups and downs that we all go through. And other emotions that would fall under sadness would also include loneliness, shame, guilt, and apathetic. Now, fear is living in the future or future events. Some people are afraid of just about everything. Now, why is that? Because often it is very subconscious. It's on a subconscious level. They haven't even figured it out why. They even will say to you, what are you fearful? I don't know. I just am. I can't put it into words. It's an experience. This is going to happen. They are not aware that they're taking it on as their identity, and that fear drives most of how they view the world and how they behave in it. It becomes a perpetual rotated cycle when it's called fear-based in psychology. And other emotions that fall under fear are anxious, insecure, helpless, apprehensive, procrastination, embarrassment. And a lot of fear-based people are insecure about their own who they are, their self-esteem, their reality. And they tend to live in future events, how they can protect themselves. The ego automatically is thinking, you better not do this because that's going to happen. So, stay home, be a recluse, things of that nature. Now, we just talked about two important things. We talked about depression tends to be grief and living in the past, and that anxiety is living in the future. Neither one of them are living in the present. And we have another book that I highly, highly recommend. I'm sure those of you viewing right now say, Carol, I know about this book. The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. Now, this came out in 1999. Of course, I had it for the workshop, but what I want to share with you, of course, Eckhart Tolle has there's many chapters, but the two that really segue with all of this is Chapter 9, Beyond Happiness and Unhappiness, There is Peace. We can get to peace. Peace will lead us to contentment, or quieting down the mind enough to go deeper, not be afraid to go into the unconscious. And then lastly, this book talks about the meaning of surrender, which is all about empowering belief. Number 4, surrendering to all of the emotions. So, The Power of Now, Living in the Now. I do recommend this book. And dealing with depression and fear. Anger. Anger is defined as a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. We can become angry so often that it begins to permeate our thought process unconsciously. It's a triggering effect where we show it on our face, in our reactions, maybe in our skepticism. that we see things half empty. An angry person may get easily frustrated, hostile, or antagonistic, whereas a fearful person may be less emotionally reactive in that way. A fearful person usually closes down, recoils, recluses, hides, goes away, limits themselves in some way, not necessarily for the angry individual. So it's important to understand those emotions within ourselves. Other emotions that would fall under anger include hostile, enraged, disgusted, annoyed, and helpful. So, as we continue with empowering belief number 4, Dr. Orloff suggests that we befriend our emotions, to blend them, sit with them, and intuitively listen to their voice. Now, that's going to take some time. I would also suggest journaling, writing, dancing, Tai Chi, yoga, deep breathing, as you try to incorporate and understand the full spectrum of these emotions as they go through you and you feel them emotionally, mentally, and physically, because they're going to lodge into your body. There's new research being done that people who are depressed seem to feel pain more, as it really plays havoc on the immune system and the serotonin and dopamine levels in the body and those hormones that are released in the brain. Let's talk a little bit more about what we resist persists. And basically, in the workshop, it says that you are better off not resisting these emotions, because they will rear their heads in times that are not appropriate, and it's a spiral downward. That there is a way to mindfully explore all the states of emotions we've covered above, and how important it is that they are expressed, not suppressed. And there's new data written about artwork, about singing. Those are other ways to bring out your feelings. Certainly, Van Gogh was an artist that showed his struggle. Many of the artists showed their struggles with bipolar and depression. So look for ways to express yourself. How do you view your emotions? Now, these are all things that were in the chapter in the book by Dr. Orloff. These are not my questions. How do you view your emotions? As teachers or tormentors? She also asks, how can this view make you stronger? So you take some time to ponder these. Do you believe it's possible that you can heal no matter how hurt you've been? Are you ready to acknowledge your full power and beauty, radiate it out to the world? What is standing in your way? If the answer is no to that, what is standing in your way? Write it down, express it, talk to a therapist, talk to a friend that you know you can confide in, that is trusting. Which old ideas and beliefs are inhibiting you? So it takes some discipline, it takes some time, but you can work through this, certainly. Now, here are some key things that come from myself and in my workshop. Having a solid emotional belief system, a strategy for dealing with life's ups and downs in place is more than just a lesson in survival. It's a reliable go-to foundation. And Dr. Orloff declares that for her, an emotional belief system is a coherent understanding that all experience is meant to impact knowledge. So have a go-to place. This is your rescue, where you write down your emotional belief systems on a level that is empowering, that radiates your beauty, your full capacity, that you can get beyond limited beliefs, limited conditions as you work to understand yourself and your subconscious shadow tendencies that these emotions seem to dwell on. So, such beliefs provide a way to flourish no matter the situation. So, that you're able to, you have a coping mechanism, and that when you understand that it's all, we're here not for punishment, but to help us grow, that these experiences are for us to understand ourselves better, and in so doing, we become, I want to say, we reflect, we mirror it to other people. They see it within us. So the kindness of the approach and your unconditional self-compassion will enable you to handle anything. So you have to approach this with kindness and unconditional self-compassion. Let go of labels. Let go of what someone's opinion is of you, what happened in a situation that defeated you or you didn't excel at. Have compassion. Let that go. Opening the heart is another way. If this is the core of your philosophy, it will never fail you. Going immediately to the heart, if that's comfortable. Again, it takes some time. And Dr. Orloff says it is the alpha and omega of healing from the heart center, the fourth chakra. So friends, this concludes this series on who do you think you are, the 4 empowering beliefs. I certainly hope that this has been helpful in some way. Thank you for everyone who has been watching and commenting. Blessings to all, and be kind to yourself and to those things that you uncover. Bye for now.